Life skills are so important, so why aren't these things being taught in school? This is a subject that I sat down to speak with ex-physics teacher and current MP Carol Monaghan about. This discussion was really important to me, having just moved into my first ever flat and feeling totally out of my depth with things such as paying rent, trying to budget my money and paying taxes, and honestly, I'm struggling with figuring out how to work these scary things. Hi Carol, I just want to begin by thanking you for taking the time out of your day to come here today. So Carol, as a former teacher and now a serving MP, can you help explain why life skills such as paying bills, real life budgeting, applying for housing and working household appliances are not prioritised more in schools, especially in poverty areas such as Drumchapel?
Yeah, I think we're starting to look more at how we deliver a curriculum and what we're hoping to do with the curriculum. And this kind of, what are we hoping to do in school? And that, as far as I'm concerned, school is about preparing young people for life. It's about, they're not going to be the finished article at the end of life, but you're kind of wanting them to have enough skills and confidence to go out into the world and do what they have to do. Now, for different young people, that might mean, for some young people, passing a pile of exams. For other young people, it might be being able to stand up in front of a class and speak to people. So it can mean different things for different people. I think we're getting better at it, but I think you're right. I think there's work still to be done there. In maths, it used to be you just did maths. We've now got this lifestyle maths, or life skills maths course that young people can take instead of your straight maths course, and it will give you things like budgeting, working out mortgages, working out interest rates, things like that, which or how do you manage if you've got £200 and that's got to last you a week? How are you going to work out paying your bills, paying for travel, paying for food, whatever you have to do? So it is looking at these kind of things. The difficulty schools will have is lots of people want to stuff things in and add extra things in. What are you going to take out? And schools have a lot of pressure, so if you might have a school like Drumchapel High, I don't know if that's the school you were at, but right, so if you're in Drumchapel High, and on one hand you've got politicians saying, we want results, we want your young people with this many exam passes. And the other hand you've got teachers that are saying, actually these young people need things other than just exam passes, but the school has been judged on exam passes. And I think sometimes we politicians probably have that wrong, and we need to look at things differently. In fairness, in Glasgow and in other places, we are starting to look at that, and some schools will have a more varied curriculum so that they can do that kind of thing. But one thing I'm going to throw a question back to you, because I like to do that. Did you ever get involved in pupil council?
Could you elaborate on that? What's pupil council? Pupil
council is an opportunity. Not all schools had them, so maybe Drumchapel High didn't, but it's, you get a representative from each class or from each year group who can come together and can talk about things. And sometimes, young people come up with far better suggestions than the old gits that are teaching them, so it'd be good to, so young people often will come up with these kind of things and say, can we get these sorts of skills, because this is what we have to do. We have to know how to use a washing machine. Mind you, I wish my son knew how to use a washing machine, but that's another story. But we need to know how to use a washing machine, so can we do some stuff on that? So I think there has to be a certain amount of responsibility from young people themselves, but a more realistic view from politicians and probably from teachers of what young people actually need.
So we did have it sparked a memory, we did have like a student council thing in Drumchapel, but I think it was rather than specific classes, it was house groups. Right. And they voted on like the wearing of the blazers and the changing of the curriculum, like the school days and times and that. So the first question I asked you kind of touched on how it would be kind of hard to stuff more classes into the curriculum. Do you think it would be difficult to implement a class that teaches kids about how to pay taxes, apply for insurance, houses and cars, and find out what kind of grants you're entitled to?
Well, we've got subject personal social education, PSE, where young people learn all sorts of things, and a lot of good stuff's covered in PSE or PSHE, sometimes it's called, but a lot of good stuff's covered in that. But there's probably an opportunity. I think at times there are there's a bit of opportunity within that class, maybe to consider some of the things you're talking about. Again, I think young people need to use their voice and say, actually, we've been learning about drugs education or sex education since we were in primary 6 or 7. We're all right with that. What we need is some financial education, and we need to know how to pay our bills. So can we do a bit on that? Can maybe the maths department help with that? Can we get other bodies in to help with that? Unfortunately, teachers are human as well and don't always work out exactly what young people might need. So I think ideas from young people would be helpful too. But that might be an ideal opportunity in that. And also when you get towards kind of S5 or S6, if young people are staying on there, there's sometimes a little bit of space in the curriculum, not as much. Used to be in 6 year, it was you dossed about and did whatever. Now the curriculum's quite tight, but there is a bit of space in that where maybe there's an opportunity for some afternoon to do a specific class that's dealing just with what you're talking about, and it might be delivered by somebody with better expertise than a teacher, who might not know all the things that a young person could be encountering, but it might be somebody like Peter here, who's working in the community, who understands better, that could come in, you know. So maybe that's where we could consider these things.
Do you know if it's important to the education department that young people are taught these skills?
They'll probably say yes, it is, but they're also trying to deal with, you know, league tables and exam results and positive destinations. I would say the most important thing for the education department is probably about getting young people into positive destinations, so either in further education or training or employment. So these are the kind of things, if they finish their school kind of life and then there's a place that they can go to continue their career or their education, I think that's probably the big driver for the education department, rather than can we then give a young person into society that's fit and ready to deal with all the challenges that they may face, because you know, you have no idea what sort of challenges you're going to face until you face them, and then you think, goodness, I know certainly me, age 20, 21, didn't have a clue. So I'm sure you're probably similar.
So that kind of perfectly goes into the next question. When you left school, were there things that you were not taught that you wished were taught at the time, such as like applying for jobs or working to a living budget?
Yeah, one of the things, and I remember I left school and I went to university, and I was delighted that I was able to go to university. But I found myself at university with a lot of people that had an awful lot more confidence than I had. And one of the things I wish I'd been taught in school was to be able to speak to sort of adults, because I felt like still I was a kid at that point, but to be able to speak to adults with confidence and in a respectful way as well, because I saw these other young people that seemed to have these skills and I didn't have them, and I really wished that I'd been forced more. And that is one of the good things about the curriculum now, is that it's not enough for, you know, a young person just to be taught about whatever it is in their maths class or their science class. We're actually saying, no, you have to be able to communicate as well. And I think that's a good thing, that what you're doing just now, I could never have thought of doing when I was your age. You know, that would have talking to an MP, interviewing an MP, goodness, I think I'd have died. And I wish I had some of that confidence. I wish I'd had some of, you know, been forced to learn that sort of communication skill at school. That would have, I think, would have helped me greatly. Not just when I was there at university, but then when I left university and had to start being in an interview situation, and not a clue, really had no clue. I don't know if you been in an interview situation yourself yet?
No, to this degree.
Yeah. Because, you know, being in an interview for a job or for something else, and you're sitting there, I have no idea how to answer the questions. And at that point, at that stage, universities didn't teach you that either. Things have moved on, thankfully, from that. But yeah, that's what I wished I'd got.
So did you have any support with these issues when you were first trying to get a house yourself when you left school?
My parents were great. I'm one of 5 kids, and my parents both worked, but there was never very much money in our household. And being one of 5, there was never going to be financial support for me, unfortunately. They were there and I stayed at home for uni, so that was okay. I didn't generate big debt or anything like some young people get nowadays, so I didn't get any of that. But my parents were very encouraging, which was great. So when I started looking for my own flat, they were very encouraging and supportive, but they weren't able to be supportive in a financial way. They were able to be supportive in a this is what you have to do, and now you need to get a lawyer, and now you have to. I wouldn't have had a clue. And it's interesting, my own son has just got his own flat, and it was the same carry on. How do I go about getting a flat? Where do I look? What do I do? How do I pay the rent? So these, I can see the same thing. And he's relying on my support, but not all young people have an adult there that they can actually ask these questions to, or that has that expertise themselves. So thankfully, my parents were supportive.
That's one of the main reasons I considered this topic, because not everyone, I was personally lucky to have a supportive family as well, like yourself, but not everyone gets their own house in the same circumstances, and some people have no other choice, so that's kind of why I picked this. But that also leads into the next question very well. As a former teacher, do you see value in life skills being taught in schools? Would you have liked to have this being taught as a subject while you're a teacher or a student?
I don't think I would have been the best person to teach life skills. Maybe that's... I think it would have been out of my comfort zone to teach that. I'm a physics teacher by profession. That was my comfort zone. I can do physics, I know physics. Probably I'd be alright at life skills. I think most adults that have had to experience challenges and have had to go and get a job or have to go and get a house could probably have made a stab at it. But I think there's probably people that could do it better than I could. But I think there's definitely an opportunity there within schools to maybe look at that. Like I say, particularly when we get to the upper ages of curriculum. It's interesting, in England just now they're talking about young people having to study maths up to the age of 18. And I think, well, is that the best thing? I mean, do we really need to be studying maths up to the age of... And I come from that sort of background. But would maths be the best thing? Surely a better thing to study is, as you say, how do you go and how do you find a flat? How do you manage a budget? How do you set up your own bank account? How do you do a direct debit?
How do you survive, essentially?
Well, these are, and it used to be, I suppose, in certain ways, when we dealt more with cash, wages. When I first worked, actually the wage was paid into my bank account, but there were still people that were being paid wages in cash, and literally you had a wad of cash and then you did that. Much more difficult if it's a figure going into a bank account that you then have to work out when's that coming off, when's that direct debit, when's my phone bill coming, when's council tax to be paid. I think that's much more difficult, and I think it's more challenging for young people. So yeah, something like that I think has great value.
You may have already answered this next question, but I was just wondering if anyone else has ever kind of asked why these skills, these vital skills, aren't taught in schools, and if not, is that something that like an MP or someone you know could help us do to raise that issue?
I think there's often a lot of discussion about such things, and one of the challenges I've already mentioned is, what are you going to drop from a curriculum when people are all saying, we should be teaching whatever X, Y and Z in school. Why are we not teaching that? Why are we not teaching life-saving skills? Why are we not teaching, basic first aid in schools? So there's always a lot of demand on what should go into schools. But I think maybe we need to consider things better in terms of raising it. I think first of all, the first thing you should do is write to local schools and say, this issue has been raised by young people. remember you've got a voice, even although you're not at the school anymore, you still have a voice. Write to local schools, but also write to Glasgow City Council and say that, you know, we've identified this as been a real need in our area. Why has this not been done? And absolutely write to the Education Secretary and say, as a group of young people in Drumchapel, this is something that we've identified. We've been at school, but we're being sent out into the world and we feel as though we're lacking in this area. And I think absolutely, and I'd be happy to support that if you decided to go ahead and start lobbying the Education Secretary. I think that'd be great.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You've kind of already answered. It says, why don't schools do more to help young people with these social issues? But you've kind of answered that a lot. So do you think schools kind of see this as someone else's responsibility to teach these skills?
I don't think they see it as someone else's responsibility. I think it's just a case of multiple pressures from many, many different directions, and the biggest one being, can we get these young people through school, get them trained up enough that we can give them a good sort of springboard into their next stage. Often schools are quite focused on the work side of it. Are you going to go on to do an apprenticeship? Are you going to go on to college? Are you going to get... They're thinking about that probably rather than the actual practicalities of day-to-day living that you've highlighted so well today. So I don't think it's that schools see it as someone else's responsibility. I think it's just that they're quite focused on the job of preparing a young person for a career rather than for the rest of life. So possibly they need a wee bit of nudging in that direction. I
totally agree. I think as well, know a lot of young people at the time in school, because I certainly wasn't interested in learning how to manage my finances, how to work my household appliances. Like, that would have been a boring class. So do you think that young people aren't as interested in this until it's too late?
It's probably a very good point, actually. So again, how do you make young people interested in it? I don't know. There may be, it's possibly something that has to be, it's possibly something that we should be offering post-school time, you know, once you're in, for young people up to the age of whatever. Here are resources you can access in order to find out. But I've got to say, every blooming washing machine is different. So every time I get a new washing machine, I have to relearn it. So I don't know learning how to work a washing machine in school would help with necessarily with the one that you end up with in your flat. That's possibly, I think sometimes we just need to muddle through and work these things out as well. Yeah.
The next question on here you've kind of already answered, so I appreciate that. If it's not possible to have classes inside school for education about life skills, why don't teachers try and point kids or students in the right direction to people who can give them that kind of support?
I suppose they would if the young person came and asked for it. And I think you've touched on that, you know, this idea of you have to know that you're drowning before you try and learn to swim, you know. So I think it probably needs the young person to be out there in the world experiencing these challenges before they realise that they don't know how to do it. And I think that's probably difficult. I've got to say, putting my teacher hat on, if one of my students came to me and said, I'm interested in finding out how to manage my monthly budgets, can you give me any pointers? I'd be more than happy to sit down with them and go through stuff like setting up a bank account and sorting out a direct debit. I'd be more than happy to do that, and I think most teachers would. I think maybe it's just that the young person themselves haven't realised that that's something they're going to need at that point.
So do you think teachers should maybe try and take some more like preventative action to kind of catch the fire while it's still burning?
Yes and no, because as I say, I think you kind of have to be out there before it becomes really relevant. Yeah. Now, if I asked you, what did you learn in third year science about X, Y and Z, you'd probably go, not a clue. Understandably, because you get that knowledge and then you dump it when you don't need it anymore. So I think, I remember, here's a wee example. Years ago, I was chatting to somebody, and it was somebody I'd taught, and they said, we were talking about sex education, and they said, oh, we never learned anything about that in school. And I said, actually, you did 6-week topic on it because I taught you, and I've still got your marks and the thing. You certainly did do sex education. And they went, oh, aye, that's right, I do remember some of it. So it's quite often things are covered and then people forget it, or you might do something with kids in a class and then they dump that information because they don't need it. So it probably makes more sense to be doing it when the person actually needs it, and then they understand the relevance, and then they'll make sure they pay more attention.
So in my experience, there's subjects like French, business, music, drama, etc. that classes I really, really enjoyed, and I'm a musician, so music's my passion, but that didn't really help me with my after school life. So why do you think these subjects are considered more important than learning how to live independently as a young school leaver?
I don't think they're more important. For some people they will be, and that's the sort of the benefits of having a curriculum where you can choose the things that you think are going to be useful. So I don't think any subject is more important than another, and I'll say something very controversial for a physics teacher, with the exception maybe of English, because we use English all the time. We use it to we're using it to communicate just now. You've sat and written your questions out, so that's really important, and we have to be able to communicate with other human beings in our daily life. So I would say that English probably is more important than other subjects in terms of sending people out. Can't believe I'm saying that as a physics teacher. I'll probably lose a few friends over that one. But anyway, so the subjects you mentioned. So you've said why did you have to do them? I think you'll probably be surprised by what you learned in those subjects, and I don't necessarily mean the knowledge. I mean transferable skills. And I've already spoken about how I wish I had learned more confidence and to be able to communicate better in school. So schools have changed dramatically since I was at school, and we do understand, and all these other subjects, in business, I bet you had to give a presentation at some point in your business class, So there you are. So you might think, why am I doing business? Well, okay, you might say, right, I'm never going to be using the knowledge, but actually you've learned an awful lot of other things as well, and there's a lot of value to that as well. So sometimes we don't necessarily understand or realise the importance of what you're taking in.
Subconsciously.
Even if it's not, how to do a spreadsheet or a ledger or an account or whatever it is in business studies, but you learned how to do a presentation, and now you can sit and do this.
Well, I never really thought about it like that. It's a really insightful way to look at it, and I really appreciate your input as not only an MP but as a teacher as well. That's all the questions I have for you, but I'd like to know if there's anything that you'd like to ask me. I'd be more than willing to answer.
I think the big question for me is what do you think could be done now? Because you've obviously raised a lot of things about lifestyle skills and what you need as a young person going into work. What do you think could be done now for you? And because obviously it's too late for school. What could be done now for you to help you and support you?
Well, I'm not really sure what the schools could do now, because when you leave school, that's kind of it. Don't really have any.
But beyond school, are there other things that?
There is, but the school doesn't really. Well, I never really asked because, like you did say earlier, I wasn't really in the mindset for needing this stuff when I was in school. But they didn't really give me any information. I kind of just found everything out the hard way and just trial and error. But I think you didn't really ask. But for in school, I think there could be like after school classes, or even just like a newsletter and an email or something that just kind of gives students more resources for things like this.
Yeah, and I suppose that sort of thing, if that sort of thing was available more widely, it wouldn't just be for people in school, it would be beyond school as well. Because I think beyond school is where you start hitting the hurdles and think that, how do I do this?
Yeah.
How do I sort this out? I had no idea how to get a lawyer. I mean, who does? Who knows how to get a lawyer? That's you know. So, and these kind of things you need. So, yeah. No, well, no. I just want to say thanks very much. You've obviously put an awful lot of thought into that, and it's a really important subject. So, I do think you need to write to probably council and the education secretary, and I'd be happy to work with you on that, and to raise this.
Well, thank you, Carol. It was lovely meeting you, and it was my pleasure having you here.
Lovely to
Thank you very much.
to come. Thank you very much for the invite.